Welcome. Thanks for joining me. Today's rant comes from a short that I found with Jordan Peterson talking about the rooting out of bad employees within corporations of America, within companies of America, and the underlying negative effects of what are happening and the morale killing that's going on by the freeloader employees living off of the success of the true workforce doing the work. So let's roll into it.
I had a friend who taught me something. He's a very disagreeable person. He took my personality test and he was like the most disagreeable person in 10,000. So he's a rough character. He looks like a pirate.
I like the sound of him already.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Well, corporations used to hire him to go in and clean up when things had got messy. So he would start at the bottom of the company and he would ferret out people who were taking all the credit when anything went right and then distributing all the blame when anything went wrong and stealing people's ideas and not doing their job.
All right.
I talked to him one day. I had to deal with some issues in my lab. I had students who were underperforming, and the higher performing students who were doing their job were getting demoralized because of that. And so I had to do something about it. And I really don't like firing people.
Here lies two of the biggest problems with a lot of management, but he's overcome the first one. And that is the recognition that it is demoralizing to other employees to have to deal with employees not doing their job, manipulating and taking credit and doing all the shady stuff that all good employees know exactly what I'm talking about. But the second biggest problem being is that too many people in positions of power are afraid to do anything about it. You heard that what he said there is that he doesn't really like firing people. And I understand that nobody likes firing people, but this is the problem with taking a leadership role, is that many people take leadership roles, but they don't really want to lead in that context. But that's part of the context of leading people, is that sometimes you may have to fire. Sometimes you may have to remove people from the sphere of influence that you have because these people are corrosive to the system. The emotions getting in the way and saying, I really just don't like to fire people is understandable, but that is the biggest thing that has to be overcome.
I was talking to my friend about firing people. I said, I really can't stand it. How do you manage it? Because you fired hundreds of people. He said, I really like it. And I thought, oh, well, I've never heard anyone say that before. And he said, yeah, I go into these companies and I find these people who are exploiting everyone around them and making life miserable for everyone and trying to gain credit where no credit is due and being narcissistic and manipulative. And I ferret them out and I stop them and it's just fine.
And that's what you would describe as true leadership, is someone who comes in, recognizes the fact that these people are undermining and stealing from the companies by not putting up the same performance level as many of the other employees, but getting paid the same thing, making excuses for how they can't work as hard, pretending as though they can't work as hard, acting stupid so that they don't have to work as hard. If you're still here, consider hitting that like and subscribe and support the channel. All of us know these people who are choosing not to work as hard as the rest of us, but get paid the same as the rest of us. Hell, I could be one of those people. I'm just talking about it out loud so that we can actually think about it and consider the fact of how much this is undermining the structure of employment in our country, and really all over the world. You cannot allow bad employees to be on an equal footing and equal ground with good employees, because eventually the good employees say, well, why should I work as hard as the crappy guy next to me? Why should I do twice as much work as this guy and get paid the exact same? This is part of the socialization of managing employees in America, is this idea that everybody's the same when they're all just interchangeable doesn't seem to work, as we're seeing here. If everybody was interchangeable, then you wouldn't have performance differences amongst people. And saying that everybody should get paid the same because that's equality, that isn't really equality. Because the people who are working harder than the rest definitely don't see it as equal. And if they decided to not work as hard as the people who don't work that hard, you wouldn't see the advantages that then you can allow the non-workers to take advantage of.
It is common that most people in the offices will always want to look at every notification that they get on their phones, which makes them very unproductive.
The 80-20 rule, the Pareto rule, is a huge effect to say that 20% of your employees will make 80% of the profit for your company.
Such a strange phenomenon. It's like the square root of the number of people operating in a specific discipline produce half the output. That's the law. And so if there's 1,000 scientists working on a particular, in a discipline, 30 of them publish half the papers. And you can look across, it's the same with basketball, hoops successfully managed, hockey goals scored, soccer goals scored, records produced, books written, books sold, records sold. It's like everywhere, this law, this weird square root law. Sometimes people sum that up as the 80-20 principle, but it's way
that's
worse.
The way I heard it.
Yeah, it's way worse than that.
That tells you then that you only have 80% of your staff that make 20% of the profit for your company. Now that 80% then should be questioned as to what they actually do for the company that makes money. And instead of recognizing it, we ignore it, and especially ignore the impact it has on all the employees who are hurt by it. So a guy like him who goes in and gets rid of these people and notices who these people are and chops their heads off and sends them packing are the exact thing that most corporations in America need to happen right now. Or do they like the excessive spending on all of the things that they don't really need because they think that there's plenty of money going to the bottom to continue to make the money that gets so easily spent at the top? Instead of talk about equity, when there is no actual equity within corporations or America or anything for that matter. No one is or ever will receive the exact same outcome. And so we should start to really look at why we're paying bad employees the same as good employees. And never wondering if that has a massive effect on the morale of whether people want to work for you or not. We should all be looking for eyes to see and ears to hear the truth. Even if that truth isn't so convenient, but that we can learn from it and better ourselves from it is the important part. Thanks for hitting that like and subscribe button. Thanks to all my new subscribers. Thanks to all my subscribers. Thanks for watching. Later.